Hello, I'm Run, and in this analysis video I'll show you my theory on what really happened in FNAF 3 while primarily focusing on finding the actual timeline. This game from this cryptic series either had unique differences in every detail compared to the prior games, or at the closer inspection, almost all the most basic details had to be lies. I believe I finally figured everything out, and this is my conclusion from almost a year of research. First, I will show you the story. Even though it looks similar to other, is probably more of a lie than the others. It made the claim you are the only nighttime security guard for the about to open a week horror attraction, Fredbear Fright, that burns down just before its grand opening. I know that company's name is Fredbear Fright, but I prefer calling Fredbear Fright. It's just my personal preference. First, how can you have been there a week when pressing new game which makes you restart at night 1 doesn't remove story-altering progress you worked hard to get in the later parts of the week? Second, how is it you're able to restart at night and at the same time complete story-altering actions that aren't reset with the night? With the established rules that about a week needs to go by before the animatronics that attack you will display the same level of aggression that you experience when restarting at night, makes time passing between resets not being at least about a week would break the established rules of the series. And already this 1 week timeline is impossible by the movements of this event. But there are ample up details like false messages, newspaper documentation, and any other factors I can think of doesn't hold up to scrutiny as well. First, there is a complete removal of all official documentation that legally can only be given to one person, and your name is completely removed, unlike the prior games, giving the possibility you never were an employee of Fredbear Fright. Next, false messages, because FNAF 1 clearly saying the recordings establishes false messages for FNAF 3 could be recordings, therefore it could be very old. Unlike FNAF 2, which a person actually directly interacts with your character, FNAF 3 false messages doesn't make any attempt to interact with you, like a report to a person that a recording would be efficient enough to give. But the boss obviously seems to be social and happy, talking to a basic employee, bragging really about everything. I would have expected someone like that to have said something like, "What do you think about what I did?" while expecting a lot of praise. The boss is also dealing with a stressful amount of trouble. Even though he wants this place to be open in 1 week, there is a significant possibility the place will suddenly burn down, destroying all the irreplaceable authentic merchandise from Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria he worked so hard to collect, and potentially customers as well. With such issues, the engineers and the boss must be working non-stop to have this place open in 1 week. I think since the place is empty, they all finish their beyond 12-hour work shifts and must be exhausted. Wait for a long time after everyone has cleared out to talk happily with the nighttime employee and sound so energetic when he should be exhausted. And why is there not a single trace of engineer equipment, any differences in how electricity moves through the building, open panels, or any single small item moved from this critically important engineering operation anywhere throughout Fredbear Fright? There are some exposed wires, but they're handled like decorations. I didn't see any connection pieces on the ends of the wires. 6 days pass after the 1 week before grand opening is given. Still, no attempt is made to attach them, therefore test if that equipment will not catch fire or even work. It's possible they have extreme confidence in its integrity, but very unlikely construction technique in a building with an electrical fire hazard. This place is 24-hour surveillance. There's no reason whatsoever to go through the painstaking process of packing up your extensive amount of equipment for your every day and put all your equipment back together before maintenance is complete to be disassembled the next day to finish repairs. This place supposedly burns down, which seems to verify the interaction with your boss, but the claim was entirely made incorrectly. In fact, the report of Fredbear Fright burning down could be describing a completely different one that was made decades and maybe even centuries later, which the other games made sure their documentation wording would never have allowed such an interpretation. The end newspaper says a attraction instead of the attraction, which could mean there's another, and the end newspaper also doesn't describe the amusement park the first one was built in, and the end newspaper says the attraction was based on an ancient incident which could be centuries or more old, while the intro newspaper says the attraction was based on a decades old incident. Making both newspapers could be talking about 2 separate buildings that were owned by the same company, as it says they're both owned by Fredbear Fright. This also keeps the likely destruction of the remaining possessed equipment possibility intact, as since they're owned by the same company, anything can be transferred easily between buildings owned by the same company. On top of that, FNAF 3 is the last recorded event in Five Nights at Freddy's timeline. There was no event happening after this, which forces one to have an early endpoint, and all evidence for this event taking place over a short period of time is basically dismissed. We may be dealing with a very extensively long event. Since all evidence for the story they give you says it's impossible, it is unlikely, or it doesn't give concrete evidence, I will completely dismiss it, and also pursue the correct story. This conclusion has already dismissed all evidence you were employed, and the answers I've reached actually takes this into account and will show the reasons I found and in what specific way this employment was altered. The best way I found was to pursue the only angle that you are giving concrete evidence for, is a timeline. Since you can only move to nights in certain orders, this would of course create the correct shape of the true timeline with probable added parts. Since basic functions such as resetting the story by pressing new game doesn't remove the story altering progress, almost all parts of this timeline has story altering progress move with you. This timeline shape is likely correct, except for the one part which I can't find any supporting evidence for. It's hold down the set data option, which aims to place you at a true beginning with the information you have still with you. But since mystery stories can't prevent you from coming in with prior knowledge, this placing you at a true beginning with just prior knowledge doesn't give any evidence of time progression that can't be dismissed. This possibility will be dismissed. Next, this timeline needs to always eventually be able to end, which is placed on completion of Night 6, with another Phasma fight burning down, which can only be done very few times before consequences were imposed on them for negligence as a cause of considered faulty wiring. The place you're in burning down into interpretation has no concrete evidence supporting it, and would restrict the timeline even more, so will not be factored in. The next thing that is critical and can be easily attached is the units of time for this timeline. Without units, we have no way to measure how much time passes between each movement in this timeline. Like a timeline that what seems to be days could represent years, or minutes, so it'd be useless to use. The units can be found by a report created by the phone guy on animatronic behavior. This person is able to accurately predict many animatronics' increase in movement and aggression as the week progresses. The way he claimed he knew this was by how he observed the animatronics' predictable increase in activity for every night of a week. Since it's described as a repeating about a week-long event, I will call this unit's time a week cycle. Since all later nights you face predictable animatronic behavior levels, if you try to move to a night that has an equal or less of difficulty, you have to have minimum go to the next week's cycle with that difficulty, as the beginning point of those nights on current week cycle has passed by already. The week cycle that most shown was 8 days, but could be longer, as no confirmed end date was ever shown, so actual time that passed during a full week cycle can't be shown, but the exact minimum amount of week cycles that went by can. This makes every part of this timeline, even if more than the minimum amount of time went by, can be actually described by night 1 to 6, week cycle 1 to infinity. This timeline forms a distinct shape that actually forms strongly around a certain event in this game. Night 1 to 5 are forced to be completed in order, which putting souls at peace also must have those nights be done in order. Putting at peace is another way of saying spirits moving on to the afterlife. Also, you can try a night multiple times as long as you interact with a minigame, which minigames are key to putting souls at peace, and when starting a night always allows you to investigate each cryptic step indefinitely, except for the very memorable clue you got in the end of the night before. The time allows you to start the 5 in order nights with likely mistakes made during an attempt to put souls at peace needs to be able to be restarted the 5 in order nights. And then night 6 unlocks after you tried the entire putting souls at peace steps, and after completion shows what can be used to put them at peace is probably going to be burned away in a fire, then let you completely try again instead of ending the story for at least the first time. So this objective could describe why every part of this timeline happened, but the end shows a fire likely forcefully releasing the spirits, which has been shown to be effective in FNAF 6. For this to be the reason for this timeline, this indicates certain souls can't move on by the fire plan to send all spirits to the afterlife. There are not yet any confirmed haunting events taking place after this, therefore this could be the final chapter putting these spirits to rest that could potentially leave innocent souls trapped. Now the reason why certain innocent souls can be trapped forever is likely because the only supernatural thing that exists are the possessed equipment, which a company maintained and went out of business decades ago, and every possessed thing here is either shown in severe decay or reported to be in severe decay. So what was needed could be to damage to guarantee success. The message you see telling if you were successful freeing the souls on night 5 has many differences like a hidden message, was able to interpret to describe the freeing trapped souls timeline. First sentence format is therefore one but not the other. Sentences represent an isolated complete thought, so bad end could say something bad isolated related to trapped souls. With a song that Happy Say minigame playing that is the only minigame that can directly finalize freeing the permanently trapped souls, it could be saying you can still save the souls in this isolated bad thing. For you to receive the bad end message, your timeline would be exactly what was just described. The other one sentence format is gone. It could be saying it doesn't stand out anymore. If it describes its timeline when you receive the message, would be accurate as the souls can't be retrapped and all further action in this timeline will not change what will eventually happen. The unusual animatronic in the background can describe how the souls are imprisoned. But since these 4 trapped souls had the dead body soul moving to the animatronics, the dead body was by itself placed inside. If the link to this world becomes permanent while others remain free, some type of change to a group of animatronic parts containing these specific trapped souls is the most likely explanation. The possessed parts that are designed to be an animatronic being mixed together into another animatronic creating a supernatural reaction is a possibility. When souls are at peace, the link to this world are represented as severed, which have to include the combination of animatronic parts that trapped them for them to be free, which is shown as the different animatronics is completely missing in the ending they are released. But the souls still appear, so they aren't in the afterlife yet, showing that the haunted parts are still around in the ending. There was an event in FNAF 2 that animatronic parts were removed from only the 4 animatronics in the ending and put in an unknown combination of new animatronics. There were 2 other animatronics, but their core parts had dangerous defects, and when shown during when parts were removed, the damage isn't severe enough to prove parts were removed. It's unlikely with no proof that hazardous defective parts were used to spare parts. This event clearly can explain why these 4 animatronics were trapped. My earlier video, Balloon Girl and the Curse of Kip's Cove theory, reached the same from a different angle, and goes farther as it makes a case that one of the most unusual animatronics of FNAF 2, Balloon Girl, also known as JJ, is the one they are trapped in. Now for the difference in Chica's eyes. But this is not the only difference in Chica, as the steps for this animatronic to attack has never been seen before, so something is probably causing changes. There was a cupcake that Chica holds that showed the supernatural powers of FNAF 4 attacking you, and since there are no other confirmed supernatural cupcakes, the supernatural cupcake seen throughout FNAF 3 is probably that one. Therefore, an unusual supernatural thing is in close proximity to Chica, and likely the reason for the changes. So these entities could describe the timeline for plan for freeing the souls, they also describe what trapped them, and an event exists that could have caused what is described. And the entire timeline could be considered solely designed for the plan to free the souls. It also tells you if freeing the temple was successful. For this plan to free souls being the reason why everything in FNAF 3 happened, we can look at how it was accomplished to learn about the mastermind. First, this plan is the most direct use of supernatural for a single plan ever shown. Every supernatural minigame either has a similar mechanism, or shows a message for that plan, and completely intentional. And the ways you interact with the plan in the office is so supernatural and distinctly has a purpose, no living person ever shown this level of control. In fact, they only been able to gather possessed things that spawn these things, usually unrelated to each other, but has distinct messages only spirits can put in. Therefore, only a spirit could have made this, as ample motives do not have innocent children's souls get trapped, and it's clear at least some of the animatronics are very intelligent, therefore can creatively plan. Since the mastermind's link to his world is the damaged possessed equipment, it being unable to make sure the plan is successful and problems with the plan's implementation could all be a side effect of its damaged state. Now, I will pursue what actually happens at the end point of the timeline. This ending with a burned down newspaper article has yet again the Happiest Day minigame song, which is from the only minigame that permanently frees the souls, which again says what can free the souls is still around. Since the newspaper article is the same no matter what point in time, and contains the final clues that the souls can be trapped forever, there is a manipulation. Since other spirits that are not trapped can move on if what contains the souls is destroyed, therefore has many options beside a fire to move on. This important supernatural clue mechanism can be existing through those spirits that won't be released in a fire and strongly designed to last as long as the plan does, then get released at some later point. My FNAF 3 menu analysis reveals more. The menu is set up very differently. Since the series is all about a hidden story, any changes that shouldn't be dismissed. And I found that besides a few things in the first part of the menu that would standard things attached to a game's menu, everything seems to be either a message or key parts of this plan, like you're still playing the game when in the menu. Your key choice in the soul rescue plan, night progression, can only be done in a menu, therefore the critical parts of your story is happening in the menu. Things unlocked for freeing the souls can be considered things hidden to help the plan. The menu minigames are directly affected by things unlocked in story minigame. Many minigames skips many in-order steps in the story minigames, likely they were important steps, so the menu minigames may have been suppressed to free the souls, because they're still connected to the story minigames as they interact. The cheat menu, since it primarily affects your survival, we need to first analyze the makers of the plan according to this being spirits. These spirits that exist through novel care for possessed equipment have no reason to willingly stop trying to save this innocent children's souls. They can get trapped forever until they succeed. The game over deaths pertain to an easily spotted person, not the gathered possessed equipment that's everywhere throughout the building that spirits exist through, so this can't forcibly stop their efforts. The story should continue in some way. It is easy to spot your death game over screen is completely set up differently, which in this cryptic story means that there's a major difference to your death. And no documentation or even name that can say you're even the same person from the beginning, so you seem very replaceable. Therefore, a continuation after death for now will be applied, but what truly happens will be analyzed later in this video because of the complex evidence that's needed. So factoring in what the cheat menu does, with that in mind, for the plan would make it too hard to look into very hidden steps to free trapped souls, for a time considered so difficult you can't beat it, or too easy to complete the game, therefore likely to completely miss the key steps to a rescue plan and too easy to trap the souls forever accidentally. Therefore it could be suppressed to slow you down and give you enough time to figure out what's truly going on. The Vatful menu has very similar menu format. Its menu background shows that what the animatronics are pursuing, and FNAF 3 as well, what contains the killer's soul. Also, the only two menus that have a nightmare label for a night, which in FNAF 3, the choice can have damage, possess equipment, potentially have the souls get trapped forever, and my research for my first video, Plush Trap Memory Representation Theory, on FNAF 4 also showed True Horribleness, which will likely has its own Nightmare Night involved. FNAF 4 has the first menu I thought had secret messages, and it being a supernatural mechanism like FNAF 3 menu to me is a strong possibility. When going past key point end night 5 or night 6, you will unlock many parts that can be messages. For night 5, the animatronic viewing is missing an animatronic, names uniquely labeled, and one shown more than once like a hidden message, with the same time giving the biggest hidden message bad end or the end. The being night 6 unlocks aggressive jump scares. The animatronics shown only motives to attack their targets. When completing night 6, you will try to stop the pursuit of the targets, so them turning on you and attacking you is a likely response like what is shown, which gives the story changes after night 6 as pushes the theory's continuation past the end for the first time through, did not free the souls. The minigame and cheat menu is unlocked also if first time beat the game, with souls already freed as well, makes it if souls are free or not. You must beat the game again to have an end that has no proof the story continues, therefore likely a true end. The event forcing the end with severe bad publicity and severe damage by a burned down building with irreplaceable authentic merchandise inside likely would force the end on the second time it happens. As first would be a freak accident, second time would show repeated incompetent behavior despite the massive preventative measures that should have been in place after the costly incident destroying irreplaceable historical objects, making a third time ever being allowed unlikely. Games do in fact commonly allow you to replay the final battles by allowing you to go back to a point in the story close to where you ended the final battle. Though being this encrypted is unusual, this encryption should be expected in a Five Nights at Freddy's game. This seems like a good failsafe of what was available. If damage causing problems, wrong choice allowed by damage would activate a likely damage failsafe preventing the tragedy only for the first time, then activate a not straightforward but very understandable warning message of the fired newspaper article, making the players think prior message says that souls are trapped and current message says I just destroyed what could free them. Most likely have players choose the correct choice of action next time, but with the damage there'll be no guarantee. If correct choice is made, there'll be great changes to possessed equipment and may because damage activate a one-time use damage failsafe, which will not change the fact that the souls will eventually be freed. This makes a serious problem possibility to activate very low, so this problem doesn't make this plan unreasonable. Now those other hidden messages, I believe I determined what they are, but unlike the other ones, the spirits have no strategic reason to have made them understandable, which this game by itself does not contain all the information needed to unlock the hidden messages' true meaning. The ones that do have a strategic value to spirits involved basically were given a vague but understandable basic function description that would likely make a person who doesn't understand what's going on end up completing the plan correctly. Like a mechanism that they did not have enough resources to make it fully working, so prioritizing was used to give it an extremely high likelihood of success. And let the spirits who strongly want to give you an angry message because you're stopping the perceived pursuit of the killer, while leaving information the spirits have no reason to care if you know and doesn't help, this plan might not be able to be understood by your character, which could be a reflection of the damaged state of what made the supernatural menu making a partially working mechanism, which damaged state of a possessed equipment basically been a factor in most parts of the series so far. The hidden messages do strongly take into account my currently unreleased research and goes way outside the bounds of the evidence used in this video. If I completely translate it, the length of this video would be at least doubled and it would clutter instead of helping this video, but I'll tell you basically what I believe it is. I believe this menu shaped like FNAF 4, which I potentially have fully decrypted, was strongly shaped to contain the individual hidden messages, and this hidden messages being in a list of animatronic characters form was made this way because the hidden messages is a list of spirits including ones you don't see directly in FNAF 3 that are involved in this incident. Now for the final thing I need for this time to truly work is to show if there is or is not a limit to the movement in all the parts of this timeline, and in what specific way. This is the biggest question of this video, as to get this would mean I need to factor in the entire story and have it play out logically with the conclusions that had already been reached. With no notable changes between time passing in this time period, I will now have to heavily rely on analyzing characters and events. First, start by analyzing the characters you play as. It has been established these two previous games you do not ever die to get the prior game surviving ending, by beating all nights in order, documentation given to a named single individual, plenty of financial documents saying your death days never occurred, and an image showing your beyond fatal mutilated death ending as your inside animatronic pursuit with countless things must be stabbing into you. Even so, surviving a week is very unlikely. Since surviving ending for prior games requires you weren't killed, this unlikely possibility becomes a definite event that happened. But this high likelihood of dying makes doing it again and again and again like FNAF 3 does impossible. Your character has a strange behavior of re-listening to certain recordings, and every documentation that could identify you, including your name, is gone, with what was just said is very suspicious. Looking at your interaction with the mastermind trying to tell you what is happening, with minigames and manipulating news articles, you don't know what the mastermind knows, so not the same character, but chance you can choose to trap souls forever by sheer ignorance, you have no idea why you're there, but determination to stay is there as you come back every night and never use an exit right next to your office. Determined but unsure why you're determined, strange behaviors and surviving things that should be impossible. So the question is who you are is replaced by what you are. There are only two intelligent types of characters, humans and spirits. So looking at spirit, you'd be dependent on damaged possessed equipment. To stay in this world could cause massive confusion, so the reason why you're determined but unsure why It could explain you surviving as long as some random thing in a place containing your soul is not damaged, which is a likely possibility. Now, the children's spirits do attack you, but noting how misguided they're pursuing the killer, attacking innocent people, even without the killer's death, and research on my menu shows that they're aware you're trying to stop the misguided pursuit of the killer, therefore gives a clear, reasonable reason why they have attacked you. So if it's true you're some type of supernatural entity, you have to be living through the now careful possessed equipment, therefore have eternal life, making infinite time can pass by between end and beginning, as long as Fed Fight can stay open and continually maintain the possessed equipment your soul's inside for a definite reason, which now will be looked at. First, you can see Fed Fight never changed anything in the horror attraction. Fed Fight could not by normal means remain open for infinite time, and building new Fed Fights that need to be burned down, while not changing anything in the horror attraction, and its customers would lose interest in non-innovative attraction. But the spirits need Fed Fight. The spirit had access to non-harmful ghost attacks and supernatural objects appearing like the cupcake poster, and many others. This, if applied to Fed Fight, would make it the greatest horror attraction of all time. There was only one danger, which is an animatronic that likely contains a killer's soul, but since it didn't shut this place down for safety reasons, and these spirits are in very similar situations and outnumber it, the spirits must have been able to successfully isolate it. With plenty of uncertainties, what is and is not causing the hauntings would deter the owners from removing anything once confirmed something is causing hauntings, and easily maintain popularity, which would explain Fed Fight not changing anything in a horror attraction for infinite time. If the killer's dead body is still in Springtrap during an excessive amount of time it was in possession of Fed Fight, when it likely would get discovered, would potentially shut down Fed Fight and likely remove the killer's soul from the premises, which either way would ruin the plan. According to the minigame's Secret Springtrap images, shows his dead body was at some point inside Springtrap, which caused it to possess his animatronic, which also was not reportedly spotted by Fed Fight at any point. This can be explained as we do have another incident with 4 different dead children being for some time placed individually inside different animatronics, which they possessed. They were not discovered after the customers complained of a foul odor with blood and mucus appearing around the openings in the face region of these animatronics. We should have revealed these dead bodies if they were still inside them, not have them being continually used publicly for years, which ended up happening. Which 4 of these animatronics are the ones that I trapped in FNAF 3, so even though the dead bodies are long gone, this had no impact on maintaining possession of the animatronics. Which could be what happened to possess Springtrap, as Springtrap's mouth, if opened wide, would reveal a dead body is always kept closed, so nothing that is revealed about Springtrap proves the killer's body is still in there. The recordings you hear in the office that show Fed Fight just before its grand opening shows the logical order of steps spirits took to make this plan work. Since the expert engineers likely are not lying about the potential fire hazard, and since the spirit's only effect on electronics is causing them to have power malfunctions, which may cause a fire in the damaged equipment, the spirits could not resolve the fire hazard danger imposed on the plan. So they hid themselves not showing any hauntings, so that if this fire hazard does shut this place down, they will wait for the next potential opportunity, not encourage this guy with actual signs of the supernatural, to bring him there and destroy the whole plan with a fire. The boss saying they will open in a week means this fire hazard will likely not stop Fed Fight's opening, and the expert engineers believe the fire hazard will be taken care of by then basically this plan can be implemented. So the spirits reveal a hidden room that contains the animatronics that they imprisoned the killer's soul in, and likely a large amount of irreplaceable things for the plan in that secret area, showing they have now committed to this plan because they brought everything that's irreplaceable and it's needed there. That is a possible complete history for Fed Fight, remaining open at least until plan ends. This brings plenty of questions about the supernatural rescuer. This is the interpretation Fed Fight is popular for hauntings, that anything supernatural could only have come from the authentic merchandise from a haunted incident. Stealing authentic merchandise is likely, so 24-hour surveillance is necessary. Since the rescuer is alone in the security room, the supernatural rescuer takes the role as official nightmare security guard, therefore is using a human body. That is called possession. This fully would explain the employee introduction is shown throughout this entire story. This employee introduction, though, would not convince a normal person they are a normal employee. A person in a delusional state by the constant fight between the original and possessing soul racking their brain could be convinced as this job description has a lot of similarities to what they actually face, as even though they're not a real security guard monitoring cameras, is still monitoring cameras like a security guard. For the first time has no nature at all, indicating something is happening. Now the first time has a normal work environment, where no need steps of freeing the souls, and all employee introduction tools are used, with the employee introduction message playing most of the night. This is the strongest effect of putting a possessed person at ease. It's done at the beginning of every long attempt at freeing the souls, and since there's no danger, technically since many nights aren't shown when there's no danger, this could be applied to suppress the body's original soul when the spirit's holding the possessed person is weakened. So likely this was a key step to keeping the possessed person's soul suppressed. This unfortunately for your character, because you would see supernatural things in the ending after the plan is complete, means the spirits might not have chosen to release you alive. Since other living characters have experienced supernatural messages that are likely accidental, it's unclear what the possessed witness saw, who may have been possessed for extremely large amounts of time. What this person saw may be enough to trap the remaining souls forever, and just letting the survivors tell the world about the plan could bring countless investigations that could lead to trapping souls. The spirits could be in a state that may not allow them to know what you know, so this makes a good motive to kill all the ones who saw the plan to guarantee success. This interpretation also explains how the last piece of the planned location was revealed to Fred right before its grand opening. This is going to sound familiar. An engineer for Freddy Fazbear Pizzeria shows them which is such a person would have been in constant contact with small possessed objects which could have potentially have possessing qualities like the one you're using, and likely had accidentally or on purpose for a souvenir brought some small possessed object with them back to the house after work. With many people that could match such a description so readily available to the mastermind, and someone doing exactly what the mastermind needs them to do indicates it was possession. But since there was likely a monetary reward for finding authentic merchandise and likely a large effort by Fred Fight to find them, this person would have likely revealed what they know a lot sooner. In a period of time, the fire hazard was a problem which the mastermind would have not have allowed. Soon after the fire hazard was resolved, it was revealed, which is too much of a coincidence, therefore it is possession. Now we need to address how the deaths caused when the animatronic is possessed by the killer again you are being handled. There was an extensive spread out supernatural network of Fredbear Frights with potential many small possessed objects that could be dispersed from the Fredbear Frights into the world. These spirits might be able to use this to possess people from anywhere, replacing you by possessing someone, then making that person sneak to this operation while also possessing others to clean up the bloody message, which could be enough to run this operation in complete secrecy. I managed to jump into the main changes you die in Game Over screen to support this with proof, as any changes like this always indicates there's hidden information. But now 3 Game Over screen is described with a computer message rather than a decorated Game Over screen like the others. You notice this location has the same thing in its Game Over screen, just shape and color and type of text used is what primarily different. These are differences which by how computers normally operate can be distortions. There's one generated by maintained possessed equipment and the other damaged possessed equipment. This could mean both are the same hidden message about the same main character dying, but one is distorted. Looking closely at sister location, events dying and being replaced actually has to have happened. There's a minigame you might be forced to play after you die, which is used to elect a surviving alternate ending, which meant someone else is reaping the benefits of the actions of someone else who had died. Nothing you experience in this location proves events aren't being repeated. All outside context is with the potential of recorded messages, and you never see anything living in it. Just the shadows you see proves nothing. And everything seen are things that could take decades for any of it to show any sign of decay, which this horror story possibly was completed within less than a year. With no undeniable proof you ever left the facility, as a supposed room inside your house you go to, you never see how you get there, so it could be anything, including a room in a horror facility. And since both sister location endings have you already killed or will likely be killed by the animatronic that is close to you, sister location potentially has the same killing of all witnesses like FNAF 3, basic identical message about your death and basically identical ending in regards to you dying. From this angle seems to be only information stored here, so I'll end my video here. I made a short summary on what the timeline says the FNAF 3 story is. You can pause now to read it. I'll have more to come in animations as well. This has been the Deer Runner, the Runner of Deer. Thanks for watching.